Good morning. The Hearing Board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District is in session. Today is Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. The time is just after 9:00 a.m., and we are meeting in the Hearing Board room in Diamond Bar. We have two changes to the calendar for this morning. The Hearing Board General Meeting is canceled until we can have proper training. Sentinel Energy Center, LLC, case number 6141-1, for an interim variance is off calendar, and that leaves one matter for today, and that is Verizon Wireless, case number 6139-1 for a regular variance. And who is representing Verizon Wireless today?
Good morning, Dana Palmer for Verizon Wireless.
I think you just turned off your...
Good morning, Dana Palmer for Verizon Wireless.
Is it?
The light there's better. Good morning, Dana Palmer from McGuire Woods on behalf of Verizon Wireless.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Can you just spell your name for the record?
Sure, DANAPALMER.
Thank you very much. And who is representing the executive officer today?
Mary Reichert on behalf of the executive officer.
Good morning. Before we begin, I'm just going to ask anyone who wishes to testify in today's proceedings, including any members of the public who might be present, to please rise to be sworn in. Please raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. We have received one document. We should mark it. It is a map, and I'm assuming this is from Verizon?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's mark that map as exhibit number 1 for petitioner. And then, Mr. Palmer, are you familiar with how the proceedings work at the hearing board?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then I will ask you for your opening.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the hearing board. As you can see from this petition for regular variance, Verizon Wireless here is seeking a regular variance to use its emergency generator at its Snow Valley cellular site through the end of the year as a direct and proximate result of winter weather that you yourselves may have experienced starting in February of this year. Our emergency generator there went from 2 hours of spinning earlier in the year to exceeding its 200-hour threshold in mid-February. The winter weather in this area occurred over a period of days and was later declared a state of emergency by Governor Newsom on or about February 21st, 2019. This cell site is up near Big Bear, and it's in a remote location naturally, and it's also a hub, which has a special meaning, which we hope to take you through a little bit later today to help better communicate the importance of this site. The cell site also provides 911 emergency telephone service to this area. And after the district's opening statement, we'd like to put on 2 witnesses to take you through some of the facts and explain better how this overage occurred.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer. Ms. Reichert, your opening.
Thank you. Subject to the testimony presented here today and compliance with the proposed conditions, the district is not opposed to the granting of this variance. I'll present the conditions now.
Okay, why don't we take a moment to hand those out to the board. And have these proposed conditions been reviewed by Verizon?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to mark the proposed regular variance conditions as Exhibit A, as in apple. And Mr. Palmer, you may present your first witness.
Thank you. First, I'd like to call Paul Santiago, who is a senior manager for network assurance in Verizon's Pacific Market, Southern California section.
Hi, good morning. Paul Santiago, Senior Manager for Network Assurance. The area I manage is the high and low desert from Imperial Valley going up through Palmdale. This particular site, Snow Valley, is part of that area. Also manage the 3 switches, Los Angeles, Santa Ana, and Inland Meadow. This particular site, Snow Valley, is one of our major hubs.
Mr. Santiago, can I just interrupt you for one moment? Can you please just spell your name? And I know you took the oath, but can you indicate that for the record?
Yes, last name, Santiago, Santiago, and I did swear in. Thank you.
Thank you. You may continue.
Okay. Snow Valley is one of our major hubs for this area. It has approximately 15 sites going through it. A hub being where this is the main feed for our backhaul and transport. If you look at the map, and there's a part left off on the 15, these other sites are not able, they're in such a remote area that we cannot, for whatever reason, get fiber out there and other means of backhaul. So we use a microwave. Snow Valley is that main hub for the microwave. Fiber transport feeds into that site, and it will then feed the other sites. So if we lose power or have an outage at Snow Valley, we will lose the other 15 sites, so 16 sites total. So just want to stress the importance of that site itself.
Paul, would you mind explaining what backhaul and transport are?
So the backhaul transport is basically what the communication feeds off of. It's similar to like you getting fiber at your house, right? It's the communication from the provider to your house. It's essentially a pipe for the communication. So with Snow Valley being the main feed for the transport, this pipe, and the other sites not being able to get that, that's where the microwave comes in, and essentially wireless pipe, if you will.
So the microwave is able to wirelessly communicate the signal across the greater distances to those other cellular sites.
That is correct, via the microwave antenna at each location, yes.
And would you mind pointing out which is the Snow Valley site on the map? I know some of our labels did not print correctly.
The Snow Valley, if you look at the map, Butler Peak there would be just southwest of that red dot right there.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you explain that again? Perhaps, would it be helpful if you can go to, there's a projector, and maybe put it on there, and you can show it. It'll just take one moment for it to project. You'll see it when it's up.
Okay. So the Snow Valley location is right here. This main site, this main hub, if you will, feeds the entire Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you could turn that on and pull that microphone to just, we keep
Okay,
a
sorry about
recording.
that, sorry
There you go.
about
Now
that.
you get picked up.
So I was saying this Snow Valley hub, which is located right here, feeds the Big Bear area, Lake Arrowhead, and part of the map that was actually left off here is the 15 west of the 138 right here. So we do have E911 services, and obviously the main interstate going to Las Vegas, which, as you know, holds a lot of traffic. But again, this main hub here in this location feeds this entire San Bernardino forest here.
Thank you for that. And you can return if you want. You can stay where you are, whatever you prefer. If it's a logistical question or clarification, yes. Senator has a question.
Yes, sir.
15 sites, or the red dots indicate a site,
Yes, sir.
and what about the other, this is 11, what about the other 4?
The portion of the map to the east was actually left off of this particular copy.
And the Sun Valley feed that you pointed out feeds all of the 15?
Yes, sir.
That's the microwave?
It feeds the 15 from, let's see here, the furthest red dot near their crest line. If you want, I can get back up.
Yeah, please.
And while Paul's going over there, I have to apologize. When we printed this, I was responsible for excising a small portion of the western side of the map. And I think, if I'm correct, there's 4 other sites. They're closer to the 15 if you look westward. So if you count up the red dots, there are not 15 others besides the Snow Valley. But I think the 4 additional sites are slightly to the west.
So noted.
Yes, on this section here. So the Snow Valley, essentially, this hub would feed sites that would feed off from here to, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but right about there?
Yeah, that's correct. It'll be northwest. There's 4 more locations that are missing.
Sorry, moving forward, if we could just take one witness at a time, that would be a lot more helpful for the record.
So yes, it would feed the 15 up to that area there.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. You can return.
Thank you. So we sort of wanted to set the scene with the map to give you all more of a visual context and sense of the geographical importance of the site and how it relates to other sites that serve a very vast area, an area that gets lots of winter weather and gets icy roads, and where people might get into problems if they drive on the ice or get caught in the snow. And so now I'd like to call our second witness. And
Before you do that, I'm just going to open it up for any questions
Absolutely.
that might have of Mr. Santiago. Ms. Reichart, do you have any questions for Mr. Santiago?
No questions.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Santiago? No? Yeah. Mr. Balagopalan?
Mr. Santiago, why was the Snow Valley chosen as the main hub?
That was prior to my coming on board. My assumption is simply due to the location. That was the site that could get backhaul or transport fed to that location. The other sites are a little bit more remote. When Mr. Mills starts to give his testimony, he may be able to provide a better answer for that. He was there during that time.
Thank you.
Senator?
Does the environmental compliance person report to you since you're the manager?
No, sir, she does not.
To your knowledge, if that person is here today?
She is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other questions? Okay, you may present your next witness. Thank you.
thank you. I'd like to present Andy Mills. Andy is a network assurance engineer based out of Ontario, California, and I'd like to take you through some of his background with Verizon and his background with this particular site. Andy, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us how long you've been at Verizon and what your responsibilities are?
Sure. My name is Andy Mills, A-N-D-Y-M-I-L-L-S, Network Assurance Engineer. I've been with Verizon Wireless for 15 years, covering this Snow Valley location for the majority of that. I'd say probably 11, 12 years at that time.
And can you recall the origin of the Snow Valley site? We had a question as to why this site was chosen as a microwave hub, and maybe you have information on that. And so give us a little background on this site, please.
Okay, so yeah, this site is fairly old, so it was even preceded my 15 years. But generally, the way that they pick, we need line of sight with microwave. So our main feed, our main office is in Ontario. So we need a line of sight from a peak to the switch, to the Metso. So Snow Valley gives us the best line of sight and backhaul for this location. It's pretty much the only area that we can feed all these sites.
And I know the hearing board might be interested in some of the history, especially of the generator at this site. And so your experience with this generator goes back many years. I know we have records in our hands right now that go back to 2014. But would you mind taking us through the hours recorded by this generator in the past few years since 2014? I understand we may be waiting for 2016 data just to be 100% accurate on those.
Okay. So, let's see where I put my notes here. Okay, so in 2014, we had a total of 31 hours of generator runtime. That's combined with maintenance and power outage emergency hours. In 2015, we had a total of about 64 hours of runtime, maintenance and emergency. We do not have 2016 on hand right now. 2017, we had approximately 317 hours of runtime. And then 2018, we had about 57 hours of generator runtime.
So, and I'd like to note for the board that in 2017, where we had the overage, Verizon Wireless was issued a notice of violation in 2018, which was settled with the district in late 2018. That notice of violation was included in the petition packet. But as you can see, at least going back to 2014, the generator has not had an overage except for 2017. I know we're still waiting for data on 2016, but we believe that those hours were under 200.
And we appreciate your including the NOV, even though it was outside the time frame it was requested for. Thank you.
You're welcome. And what I'd like to do now is take you through the timeline of what led up to the overage. So you'll have to first transport yourself back to February of this year, so not too long ago. And Andy, why don't you take us through the timeline, and if you don't have a copy of it, I have a copy of it right here to refresh your memory.
Okay, so on the morning of February 4th, 2019, about 1:30 in the morning, the power went down to our Snow Valley location. So our generator started at 1:30 a.m. We contacted Edison that morning. We got a confirmation number that they were aware of the outage. We could not access the site due to the snow. It had several feet of snow on the road. So we had no way to go and validate or check on the generator at that time. The same morning, February 4th, Edison gave us an estimated time of restoral of 2/4 at 3 p.m. Later that day, at 3:32 p.m., Edison gave us a new estimated time of restoral of 2/5 at 3 p.m. On 2/6, Edison gave us a new estimated time of restoral of 3 p.m. on 2/6. During this time, we are in constant contact with Edison, monitoring our generator, making sure everything is working. On 2/8, Edison gave us a new estimated time of restoral of 2:13 at 3 p.m. At this time is when I notified our regulatory people that we're probably going to go over our allotted time and to get the ball rolling on all the notifications required. Let's see, on 2/8, VZ Regulatory, we left a voicemail with South Coast SCAQMD to let them know that we were going to go over. And at this time, we had not gone over. We were, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we were probably about 50 hours short. Okay, so on 2/12, on 2/12 is when we crossed the 200-hour threshold for our permit. Let's see, on 2/13 at 2:49 p.m., Edison gave us a new estimated time of restoral of 2:20. On 2/21, power is still out, and Edison notifies us that they're starting to plow the road to be able to access the location to start repairs.
Yes, you had a question?
We had a copy of those dates.
These are his own notes, I assume, so we do not have to have copies, but if he,
Just print it out.
I don't know that he would want copies of his notes.
These
if
are
it's
my,
in-
these are my notes that,
Those are attorney
he's
attorney notes.
refreshing his memory from. But we'd have no problem,
It's a form.
we'd have no problem, and we have no problem taking you through any of the dates specifically or providing a different exhibit with a timeline if that's desired.
It would help me in recalling the dates, I mean, if I work through the process.
Okay, well, they're not going to make copies of attorney notes, but did you want to take the time for them to create a new document, or can we just
I
go
just
over
ask
it
him,
slowly?
are they notes or is it typed out in a form setting?
These are typed out with a lot of notes written on it.
We're not going to require the turning over of attorney notes, but if you want anything repeated, he can go through it slower.
Yes, and there were a lot of dates at issue, and we wanted to at least take you through some of the critical ones, such as when we know the generator went over the 200 hours, when the winter weather started and the generator kicked on, and as Andy has been relating, the rolling estimates from Edison as to when power will come on, because we know you folks want to know as soon as we know that we might go over our 200 hours, and we. In this case, I think the winter storms were of a big enough intensity to drive out the power, but not big enough to have a big calamity emergency all at once, which is great. But we wanted to communicate that Edison kept giving us a different estimate as to when power would come back on. And so I think we should probably just continue through the rest of the timeline and then into Verizon's response. And then we're happy to go over any parts of the timeline.
We can ask questions if we miss any of the important dates.
It appears to be a report written to someone, that's what, when you flip the pages, what it looks like to me.
We've established it's attorney work product that he's reading from. So it's nothing that we should be able to see or have turned over, but we can ask questions
But when
on
you
it.
finish, I can ask a question then.
Yes,
Okay.
please proceed.
Okay, so on 2/21, Edison starts planning to plow the road to gain access to the site. On 2/28, our generator failed and we lost power to our site. And we went on battery power. So at that time, I actually hiked up to the site about 1.5 miles to try to get our generator back up and running, as well as trying to conserve as much power as we can while we were on battery power until we could get our generator running. I was unable to get the generator running, so I put a snowcat on order. And on 3/1, we accessed the location via snowcat with a generator repair tech to get our generator back online. Our generator came back online on 3/1 at 3:37 p.m. On 3/7, Edison restored power to our location and our generator shut down. And that is the end of the timeline that I have.
So a couple of things I just wanted to emphasize for the hearing board. First, I really wanted to illustrate, first of all, Verizon takes environmental compliance extremely seriously. I've had the privilege of serving as their outside environmental counsel for...
I just want to advise you not to get into testimony. If
I won't get into testimony, but I did want to relate it back to the testimony that you just heard on the dates. And I think it was a really extraordinary response by Andy to hike 1.5 hours uphill from the place that Edison was able to plow.
we can save this for closing. If we could just keep it to testimony now, and you'll have an opportunity to make those remarks in closing.
That sounds good, thank you. Andy, you had testified that Edison restored the power on March 7th. Can you explain to the hearing board in what manner they restored the power?
So the damage to the power lines was pretty extreme. So Edison restored power via emergency generator. They currently have two diesel generators at the top of the peak to supply power to everybody, all the different carriers on top of that peak. And to this day, the power has not permanently been restored. The power lines are still down. That whole location is being powered by Southern California Edison generators.
And that was a surprising fact to me, and I wanted to emphasize it for the hearing board because when we had filed our petition, I had understood that actual commercial permanent power had been restored to the site on March 7th, and it came as a...
Again, can we do need to limit this part of the hearing to questions rather than commentary. Thank you.
Okay. And then, Andy, can you explain what you understand from Edison as to the situation of the reconnection of permanent power?
Okay. Yes, I talked to the local Southern California Edison supervisor. They are waiting on U.S. Forest Service approval to repair the down poles and power lines. Not sure how long that's going to take. They're unaware. When they get approval from the U.S. Forest Service, it'll take them about 2 weeks to make the repairs. So once they get approval, 2 weeks for repair.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Ms. Reichart, you have questions?
Okay, thank you. I think I missed a date in here. You said that the generator went out at some point and was no longer operational for a period of time. When was that?
On 2/28,
Okay,
the generator failed, and then we got it back online the next day, so 3/1.
I see. Okay, so for that period of time, there was no cell service in that area?
We have battery backup there, so the batteries lasted, I believe, almost 30 hours. So we were on battery backup. We had service most of the time. By the time we got the generator back online, we did lose cell coverage for, I believe, about an hour. And then we got the generator back online and restored service.
Okay. And so this battery backup, you said it has 30 hours capacity?
It had 30 hours at the time because I hiked to the site and I shut down a lot of equipment. So I was able to double the battery life. I believe on a normal situation, we probably have about 15 hours of battery backup.
Okay. And have you reviewed the proposed variance conditions?
Yes, I have.
Is Verizon able to comply with condition number 2, requiring that battery backup power be used for the first hour of any emergency power interruption before the ICE is operated?
Yes, we spoke about this, and I talked to our generator contractors to see if this is something we can do. And also I talked to my manager, Paul, to make sure this is something that we can comply with. And I believe we can comply with that. It may take some time because we're going to need to order some parts to get our transfer switch set up this way. But it is something that we can comply with.
Okay. And what is the current hour reading of the generator?
Let me see here. Are you looking for the total hours for the year or the?
Yeah, total hours for the year, sorry.
Okay, so as of the end of March, it was 731.1 hours at the end of March. And then we do have a couple of runs, but I have not tallied it up. But it's a total of about 31 minutes in April so far.
In April. And was that for testing or was that emergency?
In April, it was all testing. It runs it for 15 minutes a week to keep the generator cycling. So we have it's an automatic every Wednesday at 9 in the morning. It runs for 15 minutes.
For 15 minutes. Okay, so in keeping with that, you'll be able to comply with the condition number 1, which says no more than 1 hour per month total for maintenance and testing?
Yes, we can comply with that. It's 15 minutes a week, and we may, just to give us a little wiggle room, we may turn it down to 10 minutes, just so we have a few extra minutes to play with.
Especially because occasionally there will be a fifth.
Yeah, so we want to probably turn it down to maybe 10 minutes.
And that would be sufficient to still maintain the equipment and ensure proper operation?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so after you said the Edison restored power on March 7th, was there any additional runtime in March after that?
Yes, we have had several outages, short for the most part, but we have had, because we are being supplied by generator, so during maintenance of their generators, our generator kicks on to supply power. Most of the outages that I'm looking at here have been less than an hour. So if we do implement, I believe, number
2.
two, it wouldn't have ran during that time. We did have one extended outage on 3/23, where our generator ran for about 8 hours because it was on a Sunday afternoon. Edison's generator went down. They both went down, and they had to tow up a new generator.
Okay, and then you mentioned that Edison is waiting for approval from whom?
U.S. Forest Service?
And do they have any idea when that's coming?
As far as we know, no.
And what kind of approval is it specifically?
The power lines run through the U.S. Forest Service. It runs through the forest. It's about, I believe it's at least 6 miles from the bottom of the road to the top. So it's running through U.S. Forest Service land.
So they just need permission to go on the land?
They need permission to do construction on the land because they're going to install new poles. So it's not to get on the land, it's to do construction.
Okay, and Edison has not given you an estimate of when those repairs would be done outside of once they get approval, it'll be 2 weeks?
Yes, that's all we have.
That's
right
all
now.
you have? Okay. No further questions.
Senator, do you have any questions about the timeline or any other questions? Because I know you were concerned we don't have it written.
Well, that's a detailed report you just prepared.
We wanted to be as detailed as
Did you
possible.
prepare it for someone, yes or no?
What's that?
Did you prepare that report for someone, yes or no?
I prepared that report for myself, yes.
All right, looks like a heading on it to me. Anyway, the failure occurred on February 4th, according to your petition. And the environmental compliance officer personnel, according to the petition, was informed February 8th.
I don't have I believe so, yes. It would have been the 8th, yes.
And it also states that contact was made with AQMD shortly thereafter.
That is correct.
Happened to be on a Monday.
I believe it was on a Friday. I notified our regulatory, and then they left a voicemail on a Friday.
The 8th was on a Monday.
Was the 8th a Monday?
Yes, I just checked it.
February 8th is a Monday? Well, then I must be mistaken.
It's all right.
February 8th was a Friday.
You showed the 8th on a Friday?
February 8th is a Friday.
Okay, then I'm staying corrected. February 8th is on a Friday. Okay, and you contacted AQMD when? The following Monday?
It was the same Friday. We left a voicemail. That is, I didn't get in contact with them. I let our personnel know, and then they left a voicemail for AQMD. So I don't know when they got in contact with them.
So what I'm looking at, they finally contacted them on February 12th, according to the petition. 4 days after Monday. It says February 12th. They finally contacted the AQMD.
Senator, the petition reflects that Verizon Wireless left a voicemail for David Louie on February 8th.
I understand.
And then the second communication was on the 12th, which was a Monday.
February 12th. Was not February 12th is a Friday, I believe.
The February 12th is a Tuesday.
A Tuesday, you're right. February 12th is a Tuesday. So you went from the 8th?
Yes, I think we had tried to leave a message on the Monday, and we recalled that the district is not open on Mondays, and then we waited to the Tuesday. I think that's the way it played out. I now have my calendar in front of me, which is refreshing my own memory, but the first contact was via voicemail to David Louie on Friday, February 8th, and the second communication was on Tuesday, the 12th.
Mr. Palmer, who made that? It wasn't yourself. Was it yourself who made the contact?
No, it wasn't. It
Then-
was Verizon Corporate Environmental Health and Safety.
Okay. Because I want to caution you not to be testifying unless you want to have questions asked.
I understand. I appreciate it. I'm trying to point to the part of the petition where we put this forth.
So the disclosure notice was on February 18th to SCAQMD. Who did that?
I am not sure. I'm assuming Verizon Corporate Environmental Health and Safety, but I'm not sure.
Well, it would have been more helpful to me to have all these dates so I could follow through. But anyway, that's, and the governor issued his proclamation February 21st, according to your petition. So he acted quick, post haste, very quickly, the governor. Yes, it appears that it does anyway. He did. I can't follow, so no more questions.
Okay. Ms. Bird?
I did have one question, maybe two. You said you need to order the parts to meet condition number 2, and it may take some time, and I was just wondering what that means. What does take some time mean?
Well, what they're asking us to do is not something that we normally do, so we're going to have to order parts for that transfer switch, relays,
Okay,
to allow for that extra hour of battery time before our generator starts.
okay. And how long will it take for you to get those parts? I guess it's what I'm asking is in terms of if this is the condition and these conditions will be issued with this order, will you be able to, when will you be able to actually meet condition number 2? By having the parts and everything set up?
That I do not know. We'll put a rush on it, but I'm not sure when we could meet that.
Okay, so we might want to discuss that. Then the other question I had, and I don't know if this has to do with you or not, whoever prepared the petition has indicated that they wanted the variance to start on February 13th.
Right, we cannot grant retroactive variances.
So it would start today, as opposed to the request that's made. That's all I have.
We'll have to get that condition number 2 ironed out, and perhaps we would do that on a break, might be the most advantageous. Mr. Balagopalan.
Yes, Mr. Mills, when the outage occurred on February 4th, how did Verizon get notified that the backup generator started up? How do you normally get notification when the backup generator starts up?
We have a centralized alarm monitoring location for all of our sites. So as soon, especially for a major hub like this, the alarm comes in our operation center in Texas.
In Texas? Okay.
Right, in Texas, sees the alarm, and then they contact our local on-call technician to let them know that the power is out.
Okay, and that's how you got notified. And then, so then how do somebody go there every once a month to check on the engine, do maintenance on it, do the log and so forth? And what I'm getting at is on the fuel. How do you ensure that, how did you know there was enough fuel? And is that why the generator failed on the 28th, because there was no fuel?
We have remote fuel monitoring as well. So we do once a month check our generator, and it runs for 15 minutes a week. So we make sure that the generator is running every week as it's supposed to, so there's no problems. And the generator failed due to low oil. It had ran for almost a month straight, and the oil had got low, and it shut down.
So everything is done remotely, you can tell whether there's sufficient fuel and,
That is correct. If the generator's running correctly, if there's enough fuel, and as soon as the generator shut down, it shut down due to low oil pressure.
that you didn't have a notification on that? There was no monitoring on the fuel, on the
No
oil?
no monitoring on the oil,
Oil.
only on the fuel.
So nobody goes there physically once a month or once so often to check on the engine? Or
Well, at this location, because it gets snowed in for months at a time,
I mean, in normal, so let's say
normally with AQMD generators, we check at the end of the month. We go through our logs, our alarms, and then once a quarter, we do a physical on-site check to check the hours, and make sure that everything is good.
so how many, what's the storage capacity of the LPG on that site, do you know?
It is 2,000 gallons.
1,000, okay. And do you know approximately how many gallons an hour it consumes?
I believe we figured this out during this outage, about 2.5 at this location, 2.5. Well, actually, it's 2.5%, sorry, I'm not sure what the gallons are. It's 2.5% of that tank.
Of the tank?
I never figured out how many gallons it was.
So the logs that you keep, the operating logs and when the engine, so that's all based on all the information, the notification you get from the remote notification? When the
Yes,
engine
that is
ran,
right.
how long it ran, and so forth. And then where do you keep the log?
The log is actually normally kept on site for AQMD inspections. These are the binders that we keep on site. And we write out everything from our website into this log. And then when we do AQMD inspections, we provide these logs to AQMD with all of the detailed hour meters, how long the generators ran, and so on.
But if somebody's only going there once a few months, then is that when you update the log, when somebody?
Well, we normally have a separate copy of the log, so we can fill those out at our office. And then when we go to the location, we validate once a quarter, and then we put all of the update everything in here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Reichart has a follow-up question.
I just had a follow-up question about the fuel usage. So you said it uses 2.5% of the capacity of the storage tank an hour?
No, a day.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
Did you,
I may
I
have
also
misspoke.
heard an hour, yes.
Sorry about that.
so did you have to refill the storage tank at any point during the outage?
We did when via Snowcat on the 1st.
Okay.
On 3/1, we went up there, repaired our generator when we were running low on propane. So we filled, and then we had to fill again, because with a Snowcat, we're limited on storage. So we had to go back there a couple times to refill.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Palmer, do you have another witness?
No further witnesses.
Do you have anyone to speak to the emissions profile of the engine?
I believe the district has staff present who can speak to the emissions profile of the engine.
Okay. Then I will turn it over to Ms. Reichart, and then once we're done, we'll take a break, and then we can discuss those conditions can be discussed before we close.
Okay.
So Ms. Reichart, if you can just introduce a witness for that.
Thank you. The district calls Arnold Pineda. Pineda? I'm really bad with last names. Pineda. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Arnold Pineda. It's Arnold, Pineda, Peneda.
And did you take the oath today?
Yes, I did.
And what's your position here at the district?
I'm an air quality engineer at the district.
Okay. And did you perform an excess emissions calculation for the engine at issue in this variance?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And could you please describe what the emissions are for this equipment?
All right. So the excess emissions for This engine were calculated using default district calculation methodologies using the information submitted by Verizon in the application process. So since it's a combustion device, the following criteria of pollutants are expected. So that's NOx, VOC, CO, SOx, and PM. And since it's retrofitted with a non-selective reducer, it is expected to meet the backed emission limits. And those backed emission limits were multiplied with the horsepower. And default emission factors were used to calculate SOx and PM. And so using that calculation methodology, we were able to obtain the excess emissions in a 1 hour basis as well as on a daily basis. So for CO, the hourly emission is 0.33 pounds per hour. For NOx, it's 0.25 pounds per hour. For PM, it's 0.03 pounds per hour. VOC is 0.25 pounds per hour, and SOx was 0.0024 pounds per hour. And then on a daily basis, so if the engine is operated in 24 hours per day, then it would be 7.94 pounds per hour for CO, 5.95 pounds per day for
Sorry,
NOx.
As you're listing this off, can you list it by pollutant first, then the amount?
Oh, okay, yeah,
Could that be easier
okay,
for,
sure.
for taking notes?
Yeah, we can. We just didn't make it, the copies, but if you'd prefer, I can make copies of
Well,
it.
why don't we try to say it slowly, see if we can write it down, and if not,
Okay.
then we'll get the.
All right, so I'll list it in pounds per hour again. So for CO, it's 0.33. For NOx, it's 0.25. For PM, it's 0.03. For VOC, it's 0.25. And then for SOx, it's 0.0024. And then in pounds per day, for CO, it's 7.94. For NOx, it's 5.95. For PM, it's 0.84. For VOC, it's 5.95. And then for SOx, it's 0.06.
And that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer, do you have any questions for Mr. Pineda?
No questions.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Pineda? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pineda. Okay, Mr. Palmer, anything else before we take a break?
No, nothing further.
Okay. All right, then we're going to take a 15-minute break, and during that time, if the parties could discuss that condition number 2 and whether we need to make any adjustments to it before closing. We're off the record till, oh, sorry.
Is it possible during the break to get a copy of the table?
I think your microphone's off.
Sorry, is it possible to get a copy of the table that Mr. Pineda had prepared?
Yes.
Okay, do you need more time then than 15 minutes?
No, we should be okay.
Okay. So then we'll take a break until 5 after 10. We're off the record. We're back on the record as long as the parties are ready.
If I could just have like 30 more
Okay,
seconds.
It's not even 5 after. We'll wait then to 5 after. We're back off. We're back on the record. And did the parties have an opportunity to discuss the proposed conditions?
Yes, and
Okay.
we have a proposed additional condition to add. We will renumber, starting at moving number 2 to number 3 and so forth, and insert a new number 2, which shall read, petitioner shall, by April 26th, order and request and pay for expedited processing and shipping of all necessary parts to comply with condition number 3, period. Upon receipt of these, and we're not sure if there's multiple parts, so part, parens, S, and parens, comma, petitioner shall install and complete any necessary testing of these part, parens, S, and parens within 5 business days of receipt of these part, parens, S, and parens, and shall be allotted an additional 1 hour of runtime for the ICE to complete this testing. And then in addition, we're going to add to the beginning of condition number 3, when I see pens stopping.
I think it would be helpful to just
do that again?
quickly, you don't have to do it real slow, but just to
Do it
kind
again
of
so
go
you can
through
make
it
sure.
one more time.
Okay. Petitioner shall, by April 26th, order and request and pay for expedited processing and shipping of all necessary parts to comply with condition number 3. Upon receipt of these parts, petitioner shall install and complete any necessary testing of these parts within 5 business days of receipt of the parts, and shall be allotted an additional 1 hour of runtime for the ICE to complete this testing.
Okay, it looks like the clerk got that.
You got it? Okay, great. And then at the beginning of new condition number 3, it'll read, upon completion of the installation and testing in condition number 2, but no later than May 31st, 2019, comma, and then the rest of the condition.
One more time would be great.
Upon completion of the installation and testing in condition number 2, but no later than May 31st, 2019, comma.
Oh, I thought I heard 21st, so it's 31st.
31st. Yeah, I meant to say 31st if I misspoke. Sorry.
Okay, thank you for that. And no other changes?
I believe that petitioner will have a requested change as part of a request in his closing, but
Right.
I will leave that for him.
Okay, I'll get to that in 1 minute. First, I'm just going to make sure, is there any member of the public who wishes to be heard on this matter? And I see none. I'm sorry.
I had a follow-up question on this.
Oh, I'm so
Condition.
sorry. I got the copies.
No, yeah.
Oh, but I forgot that too.
Okay.
And you had a follow-up question for the witness?
Based on this condition for Mr. Mills.
Okay, and is Mr. Mills is still here? Yes. Mr. Mills, sorry. I'm like, who was Mr. Mills? Mr. Mills, thank you. Okay, yes, why don't you go ahead and ask that then now, and then we'll reclose.
Okay, so, Mr. Mills, when this part is arrived and it tested, do you have to program it? I mean, again, will this be a remote type of notification when these units come online with the battery backup?
Yes, it'll be similar to what we already use. The condition states we'll be on battery backup for an hour. If we do lose power,
Right.
and then after an hour, the generator will kick on. And we are notified of all alarms at these locations, so anything battery discharge, generator running, generator failure are all monitored
So
remotely.
these have to be programmed so that to start and stop at the same time and when to kick in and so forth?
We will be adding relays to our transfer switch to tell it to wait an hour, a delay relay. As far as I'm aware, I'm not the expert on the generator, but I
Okay.
believe this is what we're going to do. And then after an hour, the relay will tell the generator to start.
So you believe the 5 days would be sufficient to do all that?
Yes, that should be enough time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we reclose the record? Okay.
Would you like me to present the excess emission
Yeah,
calculation?
why don't we go ahead and do that, right? You wanted to see that, Mr. Balagopalan? Okay, why don't we do that, and we'll mark it. So we're going to be receiving excess emissions calculations, and we will mark them as Exhibit B, as in boy.
Thanks for the work product.
Okay. Why don't we take a moment to review it and see if we have any questions? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I've looked at it, I have no questions.
Okay, anyone else have questions on that? Okay. All right, then we will, would we like to put that in evidence?
Yes.
Okay. Any objection, Mr. Palmer?
No objection.
Okay, so Exhibit B is in evidence. Mr. Palmer, I assume, would you like any of the documents that are attached to the petition to be in evidence?
Yes, Madam Chair. We'd especially like the copy of the governor's declaration of February 21st to be included in evidence.
Thank you. Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. We'll place all the documents that are attached to the petition in evidence, including the declaration. Okay. Mr. Palmer, oh, sorry. Didn't mark them. Are they marked on the petition? I didn't notice whether you have them as 1, 2, or... Okay, then let me take a moment just to mark them, so that way it'll be clean for the record. We already have an Exhibit 1, so I'm just going to not mark, I'm going to mark them as numbered, just numbered, not to the petition, which we would normally do. The first one I will mark is the permit to operate, and that, or the excerpts thereof, and that will be Exhibit number 2. The notice of violation will be Exhibit number 3. That's 2 pages. Our Rule 303, I might as well mark it, that will be Exhibit 4. And then I believe the only one that remains will be Exhibit 5, and that is the declaration of Governor Newsom of state of emergency. Anything beyond that? We'll just enter them into evidence since there was no objection. All of them. Okay. Okay, now with that, Mr. Palmer, you're closing, and I assume you will address the waiver of fees as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience this morning, and thank you for your time and attention to this matter. As part of our presentation this morning, we really wanted to demonstrate to you how seriously Verizon Wireless takes environmental compliance. I've had the privilege of serving as their outside environmental counsel for almost 8 years now, and I think you can see in the numerous attempts of Andy Mills to hike to the site to restore power, how critical Verizon views this site and how willing they are to go outside the bounds of their job description to go above and beyond to keep the site up. I also want to thank District Engineer Pineda for his assistance in the calculations of excess emissions. And we have, in working with the General Counsel's office, we've agreed to all their proposed conditions, and we thought that the one requiring operating off of battery for the first hour was particularly difficult, but I'm proud that we were able to work it out and agree to their conditions for a very expeditious timeline of getting that new part installed. And I think you can see, hopefully after this morning, that the generator overage was a direct and proximate cause of the state-declared emergency. And so, therefore, we wanted to move under 303P to waive all excess emission fees. And we very much hope you grant us the regular variance in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reichart, you're closing.
Thank you. Subject to compliance with the proposed conditions as amended, the district is not opposed to the granting of this variance, and the district takes no position on the request for the fee waiver.
Thank you. Board members, anyone wish to begin discussions in this matter? No. Ms. Bird.
I guess I will. We've seen a few different cases come before us related to weather this year. This year, weather has been pretty bad in a number of places. And we've seen the state of emergency letters that have come in before for other cases. In this case, I think we can make all the findings because of the act of nature that was really, there's no way for this facility to have known or to really prepare for it. So I believe that for number one, we can find the violation. We know that they've already gone over their 200 hours that were allocated for this generator during this period of time. They have to have 200 hours for the year that is granted and reset every year, and they've already gone over it, so they are in violation. This was due to conditions beyond their reasonable control. As was mentioned, this is a weather-related incident, and there was no way for them to have predicted that it would be to this extent. They are also not able to control it in that Southern California Edison is responsible for the power to their location, and so their generator kicks on when Southern California Edison is not working or is not providing power to that location, and Southern California Edison wasn't providing power to that location because their lines were knocked out. So taking or closing would be without a corresponding benefit in reducing air contaminants. Once again, this is a propane generator, and it's located in an isolated area with a small amount of contaminants expected between now and the end of the year when this resets, based on the numbers that we received already for the excess emissions. The applicant cannot curtail operation. This is an emergency generator. It's not used on a regular basis, but only in the case of emergency, including public emergencies. So they cannot curtail the use. During the period the variance is in effect, they will reduce excess emissions. Once again, they're limited to just operating it for maintenance and testing, and in the case of an emergency. So that would be the extent feasible to reduce the emissions. And then according to the conditions listed, number, put my glasses back on. It's getting worse, that's all I can say. What is currently number 4, which was number 3, they will be logging in all the information related to the emissions so that it can be quantified and report to the district on a regular basis. It looks like every Tuesday, on the first Tuesday of every month. So based on those items, I believe we can definitely make all the findings and issue this variance.
Thank you. I agree. I also wanted to just add that they are actually even limiting excess emissions further by agreeing to the conditions 2 and 3 to get the parts necessary and then to run as soon as possible, but no later than May, this backup battery power for the first hour, which, as we heard, when Southern California Edison is running their backup generator, occurs less than an hour quite often, at least right now. I think I'm more concerned about that diesel backup generator of Southern California Edison. Perhaps we'll hear about that in a few weeks. I don't know. And also just to reiterate that this seems to be a very important location as the hub. And in particular, I remember hearing testimony with regard to the interstate that goes to Las Vegas. And I can imagine a lot of emergency calls that would not otherwise be able to go through should power go down to this hub and those that it feeds.
Yeah, I also want to just mention that they did have a problem and they were down for an hour. So we do know that it's possible that could happen if we do not provide them access to running this generator and doing what they need to do to run it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Balagopalan?
Oh, yes, just going to add that because they have the battery backup, that's a good thing that, they can take care of the nuisance outage that might occur. Sometimes we've heard testimony from other sites that they put specifically relays to take care of the nuisance outage of 15 minutes, so it won't kick in the generator. So having the backup, which Mr. Mills' testimony, it can last up to probably 15 hours. So that's a good thing. So I think that having that, it'll take care of the nuisance outage. Having that condition number 2 or number 3 that the district has proposed is a good way to ensure that the engine is not run, unless it's really needed. So I think that I can support this variance.
Senator.
This petitioner meets all the conditions that are specified beyond your control, failure. You're in violation, that's clear. And to deny this petition would deny health, safety, and welfare of the people living in that area, the ones who need the 911, the ones who need the cell phone communication, and you have a microwave that would serve 15 sites. So it's essential, it's important, it's necessary, and the petition should be approved based on various points that are made in evidence during the discussion.
Thank you, and I think it's worth saying, just repeating, this is propane, and it does meet BACT, which is good to know.
One other comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I would just say that to you, Mr. Mills, since I've been here, when people come in with that many dates that they're communicating with, they usually have it documented and submitted as part of the file. And so it can follow easily. It would have been better for me if that were the case. Okay?
So for the future, it's always helpful to have visuals. We appreciate the map, and a timeline would also be helpful. Okay, if there's nothing else on that, usually we take the waiver of fees separately, but I think it's not really much of a discussion if you want to have it before, so that we can include in the motion if we want to remove that condition. I think we've all had an opportunity to read the declaration of Governor Newsom. It does include all 4 counties within the district's purview. This is a remote location in Big Bear. There's no question it covers it, given how long it took to access even plow, and still there's no access. I understand that has nothing to do with the emergency. That has to do with the Forest Service. But clearly it does, and a 303P waiver of fees is not discretionary. It states that these fees shall be waived for any petition or variance filed as a direct and proximate result of an event declared to be a state of emergency by local, state, or federal authorities. Any other comments on that? Ms. Burke?
I agree, there's no question. It does say it shall be, so it shall be. Once we vote on it, it shall be, not before.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. In the matter of Verizon Wireless, case number 6139-1, I move that we issue this regular variance for the equipment located in the petition on page 3, the General Motors internal combustion engine, number F94141, for condition number 7 of the permit, which has to do with exceeding the 200 hours. I can't find what page that's on, but yeah, on page number 4. And it will be for the period commencing today, not from February 13th, but from April 24th through the reset of this engine, which will be January 1st of 2020. And it will be with the conditions set forth in Exhibit A with the changes that were read into the record by Ms. Reichart. And the excess emission, well, we'll say what they are. We'll say what they are. Excess emissions would be for CO, 0.33 pounds per hour. For NOx, 0.25 pounds per hour. For PM, 0.03 pounds per hour. For VOCs, 0.25 pounds per hour. For SOx, 0.0024 pounds per hour. And we will be removing condition number 5 that says pay the excess emission fees to the clerk. So they will be numbered 1 through 4 with the change that was read into the record by Ms. Reichart. And this is for the facility located at, 3000 Keller Peak Road in Running Springs, California, 92314. And I believe that completes my motion.
I'll second the motion. And would you agree to add to your motion moving to actually waive the fees?
Yes.
Under 303P?
Yes, waiver of fees as requested under 303P.
So seconded. And is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Senator, how do you vote? Mr. Balagopalan, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Ms. Byrd votes?
Yes.
And motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck with getting that up and running, the power. Is there any other business, board members? Okay, we are adjourned.